Welcome back to Nelson Media, and today we are covering episode 4 from the Amazon Prime series Swarm. This episode was crazy. It has some of the most psychologically chilling moments I've ever seen. This episode opens with Dre getting pulled over by a cop with blood stains in the back seat of her car. So Dre's on the road headed to a festival that Naja is performing in, and the cop ends up hitting on her and saying that he's gonna follow Dre all the way back to her hotel. So Dre ends up stopping at a convenience store to try to avoid the cop, but he just waits outside for her. And so a woman tries to make small talk with Dre and notices that she's being followed by him. So the woman goes outside and convinces the cop to leave, and we find out the woman's name is Cricket. So she invites Dre to stay over at her friend's house with her while, they're getting ready. They're all apparently going to go to the concert. Cricket is a little bit strange because even though she's polite, it really seems like she's hitting on her at different moments. Because Dre literally only says 2 sentences to Cricket, and she ends up saying,
"I love talking to you."
So Dre ends up agreeing to go with Cricket to her friend's house, and when she gets there, she meets Ella, or Ela. Dre introduces herself to Ella and uses the name Kayla, and Ella automatically starts to form a connection between the two of them by saying that she's drawn to others because of the similarities in their names, saying,
"All my life, I've had this intense connection to people with names like Ella, Kayla, Clarissa."
So with Ella creating this whole false sense of connection with names, it actually draws Dre in a little bit because she related the name Marissa as one of those common names. So Dre goes inside with Ella and meets the rest of the group that all seem a little bit strange, but they all kind of draw Dre further in with offering some desserts. You know how she is with the snacks. Ella and the group offer to get Dre into the festival and even get her an artist pass, and it seems way too good to be true. And then Ella furthers that connection by saying,
"Naja is a goddess, but so are you. Remember that. Remember to speak with intention."
We hear a little bit of Dre's detachment from reality when she talks about what happened to her biting Naja.
"I'm actually friends with her. Yeah, but we got into a little bit of a misunderstanding the last time I saw her."
Oh no.
So she actually has this whole relationship happening in her mind to where she even believes that she's gonna hang with Naja and her children. So one of the women walks back in and says that she just got done doing her EU, and Dre asks, "What is that?" They tell her that EU is evolution of understanding, and it's described as meditation on crack. And factoring that into how all these women are together and how they're interacting, it kind of makes it seem like this is a rehab facility or a cult of some sorts. And that's even more apparent when Dre gets shown to her room and she asks about the women's relationship to one another, and the woman that was talking to her, she likened it to being in a sorority. So Ella wakes up Dre super early in the morning and asks her to go on a hike with them. Dre complains about it and notices what time it is. It's really, really early. And I actually like what Ella did. She says this:
"You think Naja lays in bed all day? You think she stays in bed and learns all those dance moves?"
"No, but that's because Naja's special."
"Exactly, and so are you."
Now this is the second time that Ella reframed Dre's obsession with Naja into her own sense of self. First calling her a goddess, and then telling Dre she's also special. So they go on their hike, and when they reach their destination all worn out, one of the members tells Dre that she was just like her when she first joined Decawan. And now we know the name of their group and how they define that group as a women's empowerment group that
We specialize in unlocking the female potential. Teaching, learning, training, and most of all, healing.
We learn that everyone is there for healing and rehabilitation from various addictions or issues. Like one person says she has like a fluency disorder. She described that as like being a problem that kind of causes her a stutter. So you see that everybody's there for different reasons. And Ella is the executive director, and she gets disappointed in Dre when she started using her phone, saying that she was doing so good. So Ella seems to already be diagnosing Dre and coming up with her own beliefs on what her issues are. So as they're walking back, Dre passes her car and looks in it, noticing that the blood has been cleaned from the back seat. So someone knows that something happened with Dre, and now she's paranoid. They go back to the room and we see that Dre is still texting her dead sister Marissa and asking her if she's mad at her for biting Naja. Ella offers Dre some like free counseling, and this is where it gets crazy. Ella starts by giving Dre a grounding point. That is something that's going to focus her on her own identity. This is how she describes it.
I'm going to snap my fingers, and when I do, I want you to say your name. It's what we call a grounding point. And we're going to keep adding to your grounding point, so it's strong, like you.
So she does a test run on it and snaps her fingers and asks Dre for her name. And you can see the slight pause that she had to remember her made up name. And so she says Kayla. Ella then starts asking her some very basic questions like, what is her favorite Naja song? And this is something that's really commonly done in therapy. It's called building a therapeutic alliance. You get to know some of the things that your client likes and some of the commonalities, and you make the client feel more comfortable sharing information with you. Ella then relates a Naja song that has like emotional significance to sadness and asks Dre about when was the first time in her life when she first heard that song. And we see Dre's first trigger. We see the emotion coming, and it seems like it was too much for Dre to handle at that moment. So Ella refocuses her by snapping her fingers and having her repeat her name. So that's grounding her right back inside the present. So now that she's regrounded, Ella digs back in, asking her about traumatic moments as a child where Dre encountered like bullying and name calling. And Ella then digs deeper by asking her how she feels about death. And she says that death is beautiful. When she asks Dre why she says it's beautiful, she says,
because it's equal. Happens to everybody.
So we see that one of Dre's core beliefs is that nothing is fair in the world. Death is the only thing that makes us equal. That is a powerful concept to hold on to. So Ella regrounds her again after going that deep and snaps her fingers and asks her name. And Dre still sticks with the made up name. Now Ella asks her about the opposite of death and asks Dre about her spiritual beliefs and if she prays. And she responds with this.
You pray?
I used to.
Why'd you stop?
Because I realized it was just an echo.
What was?
God.
And we can see that Dre is really cracking and emotions are really heightening for her. And Ella asks her when she first heard Naja. And that is an amazing question. It's really asking Dre about the significance of Naja in her life. And Dre describes the real trauma. And it forces her back into confronting her reality and her past. Listen to her memory of the trauma.
I see milk spilled on the carpet. I can hear her in the kitchen, she's cooking.
Very good. What did Grandma say when you spilled the milk?
She said, Dre, what did you do? And she was crying.
What color was the milk?
It was red.
Did you hurt someone?
Yes.
And now Dre just acknowledges the fact that she hurt someone. So she's now deep into her sense of self and identity. So when Ella snaps her fingers, she can't hold on to the lie and reveals her real name. Now that we are inside of Dre's truth, she now describes what I think is the most important memory that she has never before acknowledged. Her not being there for Marissa when she missed the phone call and Marissa ends up ending her life. Dre describes all this to Ella, but when it came time to talk about what happened to Marissa, Dre was actually unable to acknowledge her death. And so we see Dre's relationship with her phone is tied to Marissa's death. She remains connected to it so she never again misses a message or misses a call from her. And she uses that to still communicate with Marissa. All of this confirms our original diagnosis for Dre when we said that she was dealing with PTSD. Dre goes to sleep and now she's triggered into her PTSD. So she's having nightmares where she's reliving the pain and seeing all of the things that have like symbolic meaning now. We see the fruit that she thought that she bit when she was really biting Naja. We see the relationship to the snacks, and we see Marissa asking Dre, what did she do? This is actually something that's common with PTSD, where you can have nightmares or hallucinations where the trauma keeps coming back up and you relive the feelings associated with it over and over. You see people dealing with insomnia because of it, to where they're afraid to sleep and can break out into like night sweats and experience anxiety and other symptoms. So the next day, Dre goes to the spa with the women and she's got a knot on her head, and Ella explains that she fell down, but Dre doesn't remember that ever happening. Ella is now officially recruiting Dre into the cult, and it has to be that Dre offers something as a bond. So this bond is something that's important to Dre that she can't give up, like a secret or something that she's done or someone that she's killed. This is meant to hold Dre accountable and to keep control over her, to remain inside the group out of fear of being exposed. Now, I can't show the clip because there was nudity involved, but we noticed that everyone has the same brand on their body that identifies them as part of that group. Now they believe that Dre is part of the group, and they take her phone and Dre goes off. To refocus her, Ella does the finger snapping and Dre initially goes back to Kayla, but then says her real name. Now that she's being more honest, Ella starts asking her specific questions about Dre's past now that she knows, and says that Dre is actually the one that told her these things. She knows about Khalid, and she asks about what she did to the owners of the car that actually has the blood in it. Dre describes what she did with killing people that weren't nice people, that were people that said mean things about Marissa. Now knowing all that information, Ella actually normalizes what Dre did by calling her a warrior and relating her being a warrior to Naja also being a warrior. It's crazy that as a counselor, she would do something like that. A lot of times when you're treating clients, you want to help normalize the feelings that they experience to help them not feel alone. But you don't normalize the actions that she took by like ending people's lives. So at the end of this episode, the group is acknowledging Dre for her progress, working with them, and she actually seems to be doing better until she hears the sounds of a drum. She hears music and realizes that she's missing the festival. Now Dre is brought right back into the reality that she created for herself, and she confronts the whole group, and she also confronts Ella about telling all her business to the group. So now Dre rushes to her car to leave, and Ella confronts her to stop. And she tries to stop her from leaving because you know how the cult operates. And Ella tells her,
If you leave, we know everything about you. We know everything.
And the whole group tries to support Dre and tell her that she belongs and to stay with them. And then Dre kills Ella and runs over the others as she rushes off to the festival. She arrives at the festival late and realizes that she missed the whole thing. This episode was crazy. Seeing how deep she went into her past and how Ella used some great counseling, but unfortunately she mixed it in with a lot of manipulation, which is something that cults actually do. They tie your healing and your sense of belonging to their group. Look at how gangs function. Look at how some churches function. Look at how some sororities and fraternities function. Manipulation is a powerful thing. And it might not matter how strong you think you are mentally. All of us have our weak points that can potentially be exploited. So that's all for this episode. This was much longer one than usual, but thanks for hanging around and stay tuned for the next episode. So please like and subscribe and take care.